Live from downtown Vancouver at the Vancouver Film School campus, it's time for EP Live. Hey, welcome to EPN. My name is Victor Lucas, and we bring you the latest in everything cool every single day around here. And here is actually a physical location. For those that don't know, we have moved into the VFS Cafe, which is in the downtown Vancouver district. So you can actually come and enjoy the show live and in person. Thank you all for coming here today, by the way. This is awesome. We're at 390 West Hastings Street in Vancouver, BC. And of course, we stream live every day. So if you're watching the archive of this, you can come into the chat and join the fantastic community that we have watching the show. Or you can come down and be a part of the audience right here, which would rock. We have a couple of new microphones. We are testing a couple of new mic options out today. This is the Shure, SM7B? Which is supposed to be the one that Michael Jackson recorded Thriller on. Everybody keeps reminding me of that, and everybody recognizes this microphone. It's one of the hot things on the internet. Joe Rogan uses this. And this is the Lauten LS208. We're going to hear both of them, and we're going to make a decision on which way we're going to go. And love to hear your feedback on that in the comments and in the live chat if you want to tell us what sounds better. But we're trying to make some tweaks and improvements. We've got to get going. We've got an awesome show for you today. Brooke Burgess is our guest. This guy is incredibly prolific and has done a lot of work in games and in television and podcasts, and he's a novelist, and he's a world traveler, and he's going to have great stories for us. I can't wait to have him on. But first, we have to get to the rundown, which is dedicated to Derek Yee, who says, "You're really good at your job." Thank you, Derek Yee. I love you. This rundown's all yours. Microsoft is really reaching to make Halo fans happy. The modern Halo games are finally coming to the PC. The remastered Halo Master Chief Collection will be released on Steam, and like the Xbox One version, it will include Halos 1, 2, 3, 4, and the spin-off ODST. On top of that, the PC version is adding an additional game, 2010's Halo Reach, and Microsoft says Reach will also be added to the existing Xbox One version of the collection. This is the first time the games in the main Halo series are deploying on the PC since Halo 2 was first released on the PC back in 2007, and the new versions will all run in 4K at 60 frames per second. Even though they've been released in one bundle, each game will have a staggered launch with one coming after the other. Expect the first one soon. Now, am I going to be playing these games again on the PC? Yeah, I'll test them out for sure. I'm a huge Halo fan. I think this is good news, and I think this is definitely part of Microsoft's new initiative to kind of put their games in as many screens and in as many places as they possibly can. I think they've attempted to do that in the past, but certainly technology is catching up for them. Netflix is paving the way. Disney Plus, the streaming solution, is kind of showing that it's more about subscriptions, and it's more about access through any portal that people might have to this kind of content. So this is good news for 343, good news for Bungie and the preservation of their classic work and their improvement of their classic work. So super excited about this. And Xbox One fans out there, people that have invested in the console, sometimes they get a little bit pissed off that Microsoft is kind of sharing the wealth with other people out there. I don't think you need to take that attitude. I think the good that will come out of this is that and we're seeing it in the investments into studios out there, making some of the different game studios out there's lives a little bit easier, letting them just focus on good game content. I think that's what this play is all about. Microsoft wants more screens, wants more players. You're going to get more games. And I think the days of console exclusivity are numbered, which is a good thing. Now, looking ahead to new games, it looks like Borderlands 3 is finally going to be unveiled. Gearbox Software has released an image on Twitter that appears to be teasing a Borderlands 3 announcement. It shows the familiar landscape of Borderlands planet Pandora with a highway sign that reads Exit 3 and March 28th in Boston. This almost certainly means that the long-awaited Borderlands 3 will finally be announced at PAX East, which is in Boston on March 28th. Gearbox has long hinted that a Borderlands 3 is on the way and even showed off a tech demo from the project at the Game Developers Conference 2 years ago, but there haven't been any concrete announcements about the game until now, and hopefully it will be worth the wait. This seems to be the year of the looter shooter. We seem to be getting a new announcement about new looter shooters almost every episode of EP, which is crazy. But Borderlands is a beautiful franchise. I've loved my time in these games. There's a sense of humor. There's a self-reverential quality. There's a just this really fun attitude about those games. And I've missed being able to play new content in the Borderlands universe, so I'm looking forward to this. Last time I tried a Borderlands game was Borderlands 2 in VR, and I played it until I wanted to puke. And so then I had to take the machine off my head and not puke and walk away from the game a little bit. VR, still figuring things out. But it was cool, and it was cool to jump back into that universe. I hope this game is good, and I hope it lives up to all the hype and the expectation. And now, the intense amount of competition. We've got the Division 2, we've got Anthem, we've got Destiny, which is now, under Bungie's purview, and they're going to be investing heavily into that game over the next little while. Probably somebody else is going to announce a new looter shooter that's going to drop out of the sky and compete with all of these other games. Very interesting days for this genre. It's the looter shooters versus the Battle Royale games now. Now, Captain Marvel is a hit, and now Marvel Studios is moving full steam ahead with their next big adaptation. Disney and Marvel have found a director to helm Shang-Chi, the new movie based on their superpowered martial arts master. The film will be helmed by Chinese-American filmmaker Destin Daniel Cretton, best known for directing the 2013 indie drama Short Term 12. This isn't the first time Marvel has hired a relative unknown. Having worked with filmmakers like the Russo brothers, Taika Waititi, and James Gunn, Marvel is known for hiring not necessarily first-time directors, but directors who have only made one or two smaller films, and then giving them the chance to create their first big blockbuster. Shang-Chi will be the first Marvel film headlined by an Asian superhero, which will no doubt help make it an even bigger box office success in China. No word yet on who will play the lead, and I think this is incredibly exciting and about damn time. I think this movement towards inclusion and diversity, even if it's messy, even if it's complicated, even if it pisses people off, it's all a worthwhile pursuit. We need more kinds of stories, different kinds of people in front of the camera and behind the camera, because through these efforts, even as messy as they might be and as much as they might piss off traditionalists or people that have learned to kind of accept a lot of this content in a certain direction, through all of this effort, we're going to get better work. We're going to get more interesting stories that will surprise us and will entertain us in different ways than we've been expecting, in different ways than we have come to kind of count on. And that's what we don't want. We don't want these superhero stories to all feel the same. We want them to mix it up and shake things up and surprise us and shock us and challenge us. So I can't wait. I hope this is awesome. And yeah, right on, man. You certainly could applaud that. I hope it is awesome. And even though I didn't love the Captain Marvel movie, and I've been upfront about it, I do love that we have a female-led Marvel superhero out there, and more is coming. And I can't wait to see that character just improve. And the Black Widow movie. I'm excited, man. This is great. I'm super stoked that Wonder Woman was a massive hit as well. And it just makes... You know what, man? Like, I've seen so many stories in my long life reviewing things, so selfishly, I just want to be surprised. Is that so wrong? Right. Okay, cool. Now, cross-platform multiplayer has taken a small step backwards. For now, the Nintendo Switch version of Fortnite has removed its cross-platform multiplayer support, linking the system with the Xbox One and PS4. Boo! This means Switch owners will no longer be able to play with their friends on those consoles, with Epic Games saying that they made this change in order to make the game more balanced. The Switch version only runs at 30 frames per second, far below the 60 offered by the PS4 and Xbox One, so many Switch owners have been complaining about an unfair disadvantage. Hopefully, this won't be a problem as newer systems get more powerful. The good news is that the Switch will still work with iOS and Android versions of the game, and cross-platform between the PS4 and Xbox One remains unaffected. This would be the perfect time for me to announce that Nintendo is going to release a Switch Pro. But I have no such announcement. But yeah, if we're talking about having to kind of neuter the output of a certain console because it can't keep up with the rest of the stuff, I think it's time for a little bit more parity with the hardware. And I know that there's a lot of new owners of the Switch and people that maybe just got on board at the last holiday season, but the machine is now 2 years old, and we're already entering into the next generation for PlayStation and Xbox. So I think it is time for Nintendo to be thinking about what their next powerful hardware will be, so we won't have these kinds of discrepancies and cross-platform multiplayer play becomes commonplace. I think that would be great. And honestly, if we're going to start to see Xbox content streamed on the Switch, maybe it could, the horsepower that's in the Switch itself right now, if it's just working as a streaming system, is good enough. But I think everything would benefit from a little bit more juice. And I wouldn't mind seeing a 4K version of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I think that would be pretty rad. So stay tuned. I think we're going to hear about something new hardware-wise from Nintendo this year, as well as from Sony and from Xbox. Things are just getting started. It's going to be a big, big year for all this stuff. And speaking of rumors, which I think is a little bit silly and it's probably likely not going to happen, but something flashed all over the internet today that Sony might be buying Take-Two Interactive, which of course owns Rockstar and Red Dead and Grand Theft Auto, as well as NBA 2K. That would be a huge deal, one of the biggest in the video game industry ever, and it would put, maybe the burden on the 2K franchises to become exclusive to the PlayStation platform, which would not make the best business sense. But it's all rumor, it's all speculation, and it sounds a little convoluted and a little outrageous, but who knows? This might be Sony's play. Like if Nintendo and Xbox are going to start playing nice together and merging some content or having stuff work on each other's platforms, Sony's going to maybe have to pony up and make some huge bets like this, just like Netflix is doing, saying, no, we don't need your Marvel shows anymore. We're going to make our own comic book shows. We're seeing Netflix invest in their own IP. Maybe Sony's got to do the same thing if they're going to fly solo, because they've got a huge install base. Again, we're going to find out all kinds of stuff this year. And one last thing, congratulations to our friend Jade Raymond, who just yesterday announced that she is now the vice president over at Google, running the Google Games Initiative, which we're about to find out about at the Game Developers Conference. Google apparently is going to be showing off a new console. There's been renders of a controller out there. And Jade is one of the people that's going to be running the whole show, which I am so happy about. Super proud of her, and the fact that Phil Harrison is right there with her, that bodes very well for whatever Google's got cooking with games. And the other rumor, of course, is that Sega is a part of all of this deal too, so could be very, very exciting coming out of GDC. But we'll follow up with news as we get it. All right, you guys, that's going to do it for our rundown today. Let's take a look back at this day and everything cool. Welcome to This Day and Everything Cool for March 13th. On this day in 1997, something very strange happened in the skies over Phoenix, Arizona. The infamous and very mysterious Phoenix Lights appeared from 7:30 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. with thousands of people in the Phoenix area and parts of Mexico seeing unexplained lights in the night sky. Many witnesses claim that the lights appeared in a V shape, while others claim each light moved independently from one another. As for explanations, many assume that the lights came from alien spaceships or top-secret government aircrafts, but skeptics have pointed out that the path of the lights corresponds with commercial aircraft routes. The Phoenix Lights still remain officially unexplained. On March 13, 1986, one of the biggest tech companies in the world became the biggest tech company in the world. Microsoft went public on the stock exchange for the first time, starting at $21 a share. Investors rushed to buy into the company thanks to the growing influence of the Windows operating system, and the shares closed at almost $28 that same day. The rising value of Microsoft stock made a billionaire out of co-founder Bill Gates, with him becoming the richest man in the world a few years later, and all that money helped Microsoft increase their influence in the software and hardware industry. Today, Microsoft stock is worth more than $96 a share. March 13, 1781 was an important day for those of us who enjoy childish puns. That was the day the astronomer William Herschel discovered the alien planet Uranus. It had technically been observed by humans long before that, even going back so far as ancient Greece, but Herschel was the first to correctly recognize Uranus as a planet. He named it after Uranus, the Greek god of the sky, and it has since become a favorite of children and childish adults who enjoy intentionally mispronouncing the name for a cheap and easy laugh. Also, I'm not sure why it took so long to discover Uranus, given how big it is. There, see how easy that was? Uranus is named after the god of the sky, but March 13, 2007 was an important day for the God of War. The PS2 game, God of War 2, launched in North America, continuing the hack-and-slash adventures of the god-slaying anti-hero KRATOS. Like the first game, which was released 2 years earlier, this one was developed by Sony's Santa Monica studio, and it was one of the last big games released on the PS2. Some were disappointed that the game wasn't released on the newer PS3, 3, which had already launched, but the next game, God of War 3, found its way to the system 3 years later. The God of War series is still going strong, with the reboot continuing the story in 2018. Very, very interesting collection of things that happened on this day. We had God of War and Windows and Uranus. Or is it Uranus? I don't know. You can figure that out at home. We have an awesome guest on the show today. This is a gentleman that I've known for many years. I think our first meeting was he coming in to audition to be on Electric Playground many years ago. He's had many careers in his career. He worked in games. He's an author, a novelist, has written for games, has written articles. He's got an incredible podcast that he's going to tell us about. He's done some television work and some film work, worked with Guillermo del Toro, I believe. We're going to find out all about that. But you may know him best as one of the producers on Beetle Adventure Racing for the Nintendo 64. Please welcome Brooke Burgess up to the stage. Yes! I love that game. Are you kidding me?
You got me, you bastard. I was going to come up here and give you so many compliments like, Vic, you're so damn smooth. You're Nutella to my toast. And now, F you. Hi.
No, I love Beetle Adventure Racing.
Do you know what? It's
who loved Beetle Adventure Racing?
Champion on Nintendo 64.
Buried treasure right there.
Absolutely. I'm actually working with, again, coming back, this whole kind of Mercury retrograde 20 years later, I'm working with the original producer who hired me at EA on a project right now at his studio here in Yaletown, Vancouver.
Is that Scott Blackwood?
That is indeed.
Yeah.
We both know Scott Blackwood.
Yes.
Who was producer on Need for Speed at EA, who created the Skate franchise, for sure, and then he went off to open up a company called Exploding Barrel, which got bought by Kabam, and now he has a studio called This Game Studio. We worked before a few years back on a game called Oz Broken Kingdom, which was a massive revisiting of Wizard of Oz.
I got to get Scott on the show. He's a great guy.
He said he would love to come in.
Yeah, and cool. And
I'll warn him not to.
But one of the things that I kind of recognize with him is that he's just like, I'm done with the console stuff. I'm going to go into mobile, and I believe in mobile, and mobile is the future.
He absolutely does. Obviously, Kabam has had some great success with that, and his company as well. This game studio has, and I think that what he's happy about, because he's always been a visual fidelity guy. He wanted to push N64 to its limits. He wanted to push the new PlayStation platforms to the limits with Skate. Yeah. And in mobile, he's going, we're approaching console fidelity, and that's what all of the publishers he works with are so happy with what they do from a developmental standpoint.
Okay, cool.
Do I need to lean closer? Yes, I do.
I think you do, yeah.
Okay,
a little
I can
bit
do
closer,
that.
yeah. We're learning the mics, so...
well, again, he has the superior mic, and it's okay. Although you brought the Michael Jackson thing, and I'm like, is that timely?
It's not timely.
No.
Oh, yeah. Right, yeah, I shouldn't even say that right
I
now.
know, absolutely. Yeah. I've got to moonwalk away from that.
Sorry. I apologize. Okay, well, Brooks, so was EA your first sort of kick in the creative space?
In the creative space with games, or the creative space in general?
Yeah, in general. Was that one of the
In general, I was doing playwriting when I was younger.
Okay.
And I actually moved out, a little known story, I moved out to Vancouver in '93 because I was this massive like Twin Peaks and X-Files fans, and I'm like the Pacific Northwest. It was just calling my heart and my soul.
Awesome.
Instead of wanting to be an actor in Toronto, I said, okay, I'll come to Vancouver and I'll get on TV and this will be great. Meanwhile, I'm a gamer, and so I can supplement my income working in a video game store. And actually my first gig in the game industry was managing a Microplay, if you remember that franchise.
Microplay used to sponsor Electric Playground.
Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
old school.
Yeah.
By the way, before I forget, I have to say you posted this recently on Facebook.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved that Siskel and Ebert intro that you did to Old School Playground. I remember when it first aired.
Yeah.
That's how cool that was. Look
Yeah.
that up. It's really damn cool.
Yeah, that was a super fun thing. I've been talking with Scott Jones a little bit about that. He wants that jacket back.
Oh God.
Yeah, he doesn't have that jacket. So you started at Microplay, and then you ended up at Electronic Arts?
No, I started at Microplay, and then when Microplay folded in the West Coast, one of our most loyal clients, the award-winning running back for the BC Lions, Sean Millington, was like, hey, Brooke, you want to come open a game store? And I was like, yes. And so we opened up a game store in North Vancouver. And then to carry on that horrible vocalization, there was an executive producer who was one of our clients at that game store in North Van. Yeah. He's like, so I make games. You want to come make games? And that was Sam Nelson, executive vice president at EA, who ran the Need for Speed, NBA, and a couple of other franchises.
Yeah.
And they brought me in. I started working on Need for Speed in 1997.
Amazing.
I just dated myself.
Well, I mean, that's part of the magic of games, too, is the openness of it. And I think that there was a real effort, especially at Electronic Arts, Arts to kind of branch out into the film and television world. They
Yes.
brought in a lot of TV producers and
did.
people that worked on graphics in film and TV. And
It's true. They wanted a wider creative pool, and it was frightening for me at first because I was a really late adopter of technology. I made a joke with Sam that I could barely send an email.
Hold on one
do your
second.
thing.
You got to tell me. I don't know what your hand signals are. Oh, this way? Okay. Oh, I see. Like
should I
this.
move our little bit?
Okay,
Can we
cool.
rub shoulders?
Yes. Blake, you have my permission to yell out whenever you need to, right? Is everybody cool with that?
A little healthy creative
because
friction.
Because if I'm trying to figure out what your hand signals are, it's going to be a lot of like, what do we do?
It's funny, and don't mind me. I'm not sweating because I have any form of communicable disease. It's because I'm adjusting to the cold.
Yeah.
And so I'm wearing layers, but now I'm sweating, and now the lights and the stuff. So we'll get through it.
Yeah, well, and that's one of the cool things is Brooke actually lives a big chunk of the time.
I was gonna say a big chunk. Don't say too much, or else like Residency Canada will be like Texas.
Yeah.
But yeah, I live approximately 6 months a year in Southeast Asia.
And is it always Southeast Asia? Because I know that you've done stuff in Germany.
In Germany,
you go
and
where the work is.
I go where the work is. I'll go and meet with clients at the beginning of a game process and figure out what their writing needs are, like whether it's world building, story building, just dialogue, character creation, what have you. And then I've built up enough trust over these several decades, oh my God, of doing this job, that I can do most of it remotely. So I can just have a Skype meeting once a week or what have you. I adjust my hours. It's a small sacrifice to pay, saying, oh, I need to wake up at 3 a.m. to have a live Skype meeting with somebody. To be able to go, okay, I'm going to go think about work right now on the beach.
Right. Which is pretty rad, right?
It's not so bad.
And you really can work anywhere. And don't dismiss the fact that you've been doing this forever. There's a lot of people that watch our content and always have watched our content that think, what jobs are available to me? How do I get in? What do I do? And I think what you have done is you've carved out this really exceptional, versatile career for yourself. You've been able to do whatever the hell you want to do in a lot of ways, right?
Oh, shucks.
Which is pretty damn rad, because you did some good work at Electronic Arts, and then you said, okay, I'm done with games for a while. I'm going to go build my own thing with
That's true,
Broken
with Broken
Saints.
Saints. That's right. For those of you who are old school motion comic lovers, all the studios you see doing like those little kind of animated comic promos for their movies and stuff of the last like 10, 15, 20 years, they got the idea from us. We made, myself and two friends in North Vancouver, made the first kind of motion comic epic. It was like a 10-hour, 24 episode, made it over 3 years for no money back when there was no advertising online. People are like, you're absolutely crazy. We did it in Flash. And then we got an investment from the Canadian government to redo it as a DVD series. And then 20th Century Fox picked it up for an international 4-disc DVD set. And man, the only thing that sucks about that whole thing is that we were about like 10 to 12 years too early to do the whole limited series thing, because now we're at peak TV with like 442 shows on various platforms, and they're all looking for single seasons, or they can have closed-ended things or binge watching experiences.
Do you pitch it still? I mean,
Stop pitching years ago. Do you know what? I was thinking, because I'm in town for a brief period of time, I'm like, oh, maybe there's a Netflix rep in town because they have allocated this $500 million to Canadian-specific production.
Right.
And here's a Canadian-made property, and they're doing heavy genre stuff, and it's smart, and it's cool, and it's edgy, and whatever else, and has a following still.
So you might have that meeting.
Well, there's nobody in Vancouver to do that meeting. They're all in Toronto and Montreal. Give me a call.
Yeah. But would you like to see Broken Saints as a live action now? Or
do you know what? Someday, yes. And the thing is, what you could do is take some of the themes which are timeless and then combine it with like some more current and modern technology, because technology was always the focus of the series. How can you find and reconcile the differences between the technological impact of world development on your life with kind of the spiritual yearning of being a human being?
Right.
So.
And that's another really interesting thing about the work that you do. There is always this search in your discussion creatively around the search for spiritual
meaning,
meaning and things of a higher value and a higher meaning. And your podcast is definitely, what's your podcast called?
Buddha and the Slut.
Yes, it's very subtle.
It's got me in a little bit of trouble in this modern time, in this delicate era. But yeah, what I wanted to do was tell stories as I was traveling overseas, and I wanted to like tell these smaller stories that were maybe like one shots, 15 minutes, personal things from my past that kind of showcase this experience as I travel, because you're searching for meaning. Literally, I'm moving my body around the world, but it's also an internal process. And what you realize is, okay, there's this spiritual yearning that's pulling me, and there's also this very human need for connection and sometimes expressing it in an unhealthy way. So that title of the show is about myself. It's not a judgment about anyone else. And the tongue is firmly in cheek as I tell these really kind of raw and authentic, I hope, stories.
It's very open, it's very honest, and always entertaining. And,
Thank you.
And you aren't just, I mean, the skill that you have isn't just you're a good orator, you're a writer. And so you understand how to, frame your stories from a writer's perspective.
I try.
And it comes off. It's really impressive work.
Thanks.
And, the beauty of traveling, and I know this from the work that I do, is that it gives you so much time to gain perspective and to kind of look on your life
Without
and to
a doubt.
reflect and to think about your past.
It's if there's something that I've learned about selling everything and picking up a backpack and going to live in another world and to have that culture shock and adjust to it, the only way you're going to survive in those foreign communities with completely different cultural values is not to close yourself off more. We live in this modern age where it's like hyper-tribalism, just me and the people I know and the things that we like and the place that we live and the colors that we wear and the friends that we have and the people that we date. If you're in another culture, the only way you're going to survive and create community is by being more vulnerable. Is by opening up and showing who you are, because people can smell when you're inauthentic. And so if you open up and show who you are, by nature of all those mirrors that you meet and all those people that you meet, you're going to learn more about yourself in the process.
I'm curious, is it Thailand that you live in most of the time?
Most of the time, yeah.
Are people on their phones the same way that they are when you walk around on the streets of Vancouver?
They aren't walking around town with their phones all the time, although it's very much a lifeline. And the one thing we can all be jealous of here in the West is the fact that you've got unlimited data packages for the equivalent of $20 a month.
Wow.
And here, I remember I just came into the airport 2 weeks ago, and it's like, get 5 gigabytes of data for $120. And what the how can you do that to us? Seriously, hold my face down on the pillow. Like, what are you doing?
That's how TV gets made in our country. It's all the cell service charges, but then they have these little train sets called TV networks.
But what's also surreal with that comes, you've got cheaper Chinese tech that gets flooded into the entire Southeast Asian region. And everyone wants to, even if they live a relatively extremely modest lifestyle, like borderline third world lifestyle in some of these islands where I've stayed, there's still a little bit of that keeping up with the Joneses thing in the sense of, okay, we have a nice tablet or a phone, and people will invest their minimal wages in these things. So you'll see tin roof shacks and simple houses and bungalows with kids sitting out front playing on a Samsung tablet. And it's a bit surreal. Again, another thing that it's challenging to reconcile, but it's a huge part of life there, having the communication technology, playing games. All the kids are playing games, massive RPGs, and it's like, okay, this is a universal language. So it was actually one of the things that inspired me to get back into the game industry in the first place, because I've been out of it for so long. And traveling, I'm realizing this is like a universal language, and people can relate with this. So
I've been in places like Marrakesh and seen video game consoles for sale. They're totally bootlegged and they have bogus games on them, but people play video games everywhere you go.
Absolutely. They can really relate to it.
So your experiences and your background and your expertise has led to other kinds of opportunities for you too while you've been traveling. You did a Travel Channel pilot that almost became a series?
This is where I'm not sure if any of you saw the tweet that went out, but I'm like, hey, come see me get sued. And there are certain things I definitely can't talk about that I can only hint at, and they will be like these strange cryptic messages, and maybe you can figure them out. So that's for you puzzle solvers out there, do your thing. But I can say that yes, I was commissioned to do a potential pilot, a test pilot for the Travel Channel. The first one was in 2016. It was called The Pilgrimage, and the idea was that I would kind of Anthony Bourdain style produce and write and host a show where I would take someone on a famous or an infamous spiritual journey around the world that would be shot over a week or 2 weeks, and then condense that experience and see how the person changed over that time and try to be a mirror and a guide for their experience. So I took this chef friend of mine, again, the kind of the Bourdain nod, and we went from Bangkok and we traveled 350 kilometers to Sukhothai, which is the origin of Buddhist faith in Thailand. And we had all these adventures along the way. You can find it online. It's just called The Pilgrimage. And that didn't go. They were like, oh, maybe the spiritual content's a bit too much for our viewers right now, and we'll see what happens. But then a year and a half later, they got in touch and said, hey, we have something we think that would be great for you. And I had to smirk at the title at first. I'm like, really? But it was a show called Hex on the Beach. And the idea was that we would go to places that had infamous kind of curses placed upon them, or mishaps and horrible happenings throughout history on these shorelines around the world. So you'd have you'd have these opposing forces of the beauty of coastal areas around the world, specifically like white beaches and blue turquoise waters and stuff, and then the horrors of some of the things from history that have seemed to reoccur again and again in these locations. So we actually shot it down the Catalina Islands, and was it the Catalina Island? Yeah, it was Catalina Island. And that was a kind of a fascinating project, which we shot in just 3 days. It turned out really, really well. And Travel Channel gave it the thumbs up, wanted to go to series. And then we were negotiating about, what I get paid.
Yeah.
And they wanted to take a look at my back history, because I'm like, okay, well, I want to write and produce the show. And they're like, okay, well, to earn those titles, we need to see what you've done. And then we come back full circle to the podcast, and the timing of it in the beginning of 2018, I think, right? It's it wasn't quite the right time for a guy to really talk about content that was heavy with the perspective of I guess male sexuality and that.
But isn't it fascinating, though, that you can sort of test the waters on all of these different kinds of directions that you could go and your career could take you? And all of it informs what you might write next and what your stories might be next.
Without a doubt, that's true. It's like I for a long time before I spent the time in Asia and kind of brought meditation into the daily practice of being and trying not to get attached to any outcome.
Yeah.
I was beating myself up for a decade plus, going, what am I doing? I left the cushy job in the cubicle. All my friends have vested their stocks and with bonus checks bought houses, and what have I done? You're a fool. But then you realize on your deathbed, none of that matters.
Yeah.
All we're doing is writing our name in the sand, and the tide's coming in.
Yeah.
And what I really want to do before the end of my life is know myself, as the temple of the Oracle of Delphi said. Know thyself. I want to know who I am and what I stood for, and hopefully make a positive impact with the work that I've done.
And also know the world a bit, too.
And know the world, too. But that's the thing. Knowing more of the world and the people in it helps you to know yourself, because it's all just one big hall of mirrors that we're walking through anyway.
Yeah.
At least some people think so.
Well, and this is why, this show is so enjoyable for me, because I want to be able to bring people on that have perspective and have wisdom and have a slant on all of this stuff. And I also want to show that you don't really have to have a choice figured out in where you're going to go with your life.
You can reinvent yourself every day and every moment. In fact, a lot of spiritual traditions say that. It's like clinging to an old version of yourself isn't going to help you, because every moment's changing, so are you. The
reinvention is probably the healthiest thing for all of us to kind of take in, right?
Truly.
And it sort of leads you to another open door.
Mm-hmm. If you're willing to close.
Yeah, if you're willing to, because you're making decisions on where you're going to go next.
Of course.
Do you ever miss the days of working at Electronic Arts? Do you ever think back, I would like to be with a team and stay with a group for a couple of years?
It's that key word is team. I miss the daily camaraderie.
Yeah.
I think that's the wonderful thing about being able to come back and work with some of the teams here and even in Europe, but definitely my old friends and new friends at this game studio and a few others in town, where I get to see people that I used to work with at EA, and you have that creative camaraderie that comes, getting them in the trenches and figuring out a design and seeing what works, and I get to come in and do what I do well, but learn from them, and you're learning from each other, and you're telling a great interactive story, and you get to kind of sprinkle your experience and your perspective as an outsider, but still an insider, and that's so satisfying. It's sitting in the bungalow by yourself late at night writing a story is great, and it's a personal purging thing.
It sounds romantic as hell.
It does, but it's also a little bit Hemingway sometimes. You know what I mean? That's horrible. I can't believe I said that. But the point is that the team experience.
Been alone a lot.
But the team experience is so incredibly rewarding, because you're constantly learning about the craft, about yourself through the people that you work with, and you see that you can have a positive influence on others, even if they might have more skews on their resume or what have you.
Sure.
They're learning from you from your life experience, and I get just asked all of these questions, the ones that you're asking me, every time I go to work with a developer or a studio. They're like, what's it like doing what you do? And I'm like, really? Is it that interesting? What's it like doing what you do? But that's the thing, different strokes, and the grass is always greener.
Well, life puts us in boxes, and it's what we choose to do with those boxes that
makes my way out of the box.
Yeah. The last time we had you on, Oz was just coming into fruition, which you had worked with Scott on.
Yes, Oz Broken Kingdom.
And how did the game do?
It did really well. It had, I think at its peak, more than several million.
This is a big mobile game based
This is
around
a really big mobile game.
Wizard of Oz.
If you remember, it was one of the showcase titles for the iPhone 7 launch.
Right.
So at Apple's showcase, they wanted to show off the technology of what it could do visually.
Right.
And again, as I said before, this game studio is incredible and takes very seriously visual fidelity.
Yeah.
And they pushed that thing to its limits.
Are they still? Is it still out there? And are they still supporting it?
They're still out there. They've brought back the actual game, and they own it. It's like their property now.
Okay.
And they still keep it alive, but they're focused on a couple of different titles. They did one called Chaos Battle League, but the one they're working on now, I can't. Again, I'm hamstrung, but I can say it is a pretty massive fantasy IP that is known worldwide.
Okay.
And this will be a mobile expression of it.
Okay.
And people will be pretty blown away by it. And it was kind of cool going from hey guys, it was kind of cool, pretty cool going from Oz, which I was already familiar with.
Yeah.
The L. Frank Baum works, and I got to dive into that kind of, the canon of that, and to kind of do a modern expression of it, but with strong ties to the roots.
Yeah.
And then now I had to learn this completely original IP, which I knew nothing about. It had shades of Lord of the Rings, shades of World of Warcraft, whatever, but learn it and fall in love with it, and then go, okay, what are character voices that make sense within this world? And that's the fun of my job. If I'm not creating something original where the voices purely come from me, then I want to learn the world that I'm writing in. Another reference to that, just the flip side, it's not all fantasy, it's not all typical game stuff. I was just able to write a script for the new interactive version of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Okay.
For East Side Games in town.
Wow. Okay. And so East Side they did the Trailer Park Boys game, which is huge for them.
Absolutely.
And now they've got Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah, it was announced back in July, I think, of 2018. It'll be coming out this year.
Okay.
And Fox and FX are really involved in making sure that the scripts and the storylines really adhere to the character voices and to the feeling of the show.
Are you working with the show creators at all?
Well, not the show creators, but some producers on the show are involved in basically being the gatekeepers of, is this how Dennis sounds? Is this how Frank sounds? Would Dee do this?
Awesome.
And it was a lot of fun for me to get to flex the R-rated comedy muscles, for sure.
And not the fantasy stuff, and not the
just this show
where you've been around.
I've been around a lot. I'll
do
like horror and sci-fi and fantasy, and those are things that are definitely in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
But I got a little bit of an edge to a sense of humor. You've heard the podcast. It was fun to see as a challenge, as a creative challenge, even at my ripe old age, to see if I could dive into someone else's sandbox and get those voices to portray accurately, and to know a show that I like. So what could I translate that to the gamified experience?
A damn cool career, my friend. It's very exciting.
Thanks,
and the other thing that you've got out there is Cat's Maw, which is a novel.
Right. Basically, the Shadowlands Saga is the series, and that was the first book from it, the Cat's Maw. And
my question is more coming? And
yes, there was a delay because I had to get some paid work. This is the thing when you're living this, it's so free and wonderful, and you're finding yourself through all these doors opening up. You're also poor. You're also poor. And people are like, well, I write emails. Writing shouldn't cost that much, should it? And you really have to fight for every dollar you make. But that said, after making money, then I get to, once I've made a little bit of a war chest for myself, living in Southeast Asia affords you the cheaper lifestyle. Basically, you can get like a lovely bungalow near the sea for the same price as a parking space in Vancouver.
Right.
That affords me the time to go back into that world. And that's what I'm working on now. I'm actually working on book 2. Book 2, as well as some of my contracts, and I'll give you an exclusive of something that I'm doing.
Please
this is fun, but this might just get some tongues wagging, probably a few of the entertainment sites going, huh? But for on and off the last year and a half, my cousin, the super and uber talented composer Tobias Tinker, who did the soundtrack for Broken Saints, for some of the I Am Legend stuff, for the Hellboy shorts I did with Guillermo del Toro.
So you actually work with Guillermo del Toro?
He responded via email. I never met him.
Okay.
But he was like, yes, no, again, which was something.
Well,
it's feedback.
Straight from him.
But you can hunt down the Hellboy 2 Golden Army shorts, the animated shorts motion comics online, and I produced and directed those, and those were fun. Those were totally fun. But Tobias, who I brought on as the composer for those, because he's my cousin, we've worked together for so long. He's had this incredible jazz and composing career throughout Europe and in Canada. We have been cobbling together what was at first just a fun kind of distracting summer project. So I'll usually go and hang out in Berlin in the summer where he lives, and we're like, this is pretty good. And we started bringing in some other talent. They're like, this is really good. So we've been putting together a pitch for Big Trouble in Little China, the rock opera.
Oh my God.
And totally old school Jack Burton style, not the new rock bastardization of the whole thing.
Careful.
Come on.
It might be The Rock that says yes or no.
Well, this is the whole point, right?
Yeah.
At least maybe now he'll pay attention and be like, I want to hear what this shit is about. And then, can I say shit on this show?
Yeah, you can.
I can say shit on this show.
That's all right. We won't send this to your mom.
So yeah, totally. Yeah. So we put together kind of like a sampling of all the different musical types based upon the era that the original movie was in. So it's all 80s influenced music.
So you're making a rock opera based on Big Trouble in Little China. Totally unauthorized. Nobody said you can do this.
Well, no one says you can. No one says you can't. Well, there's been some reaching out and whatever. And I think what we want to do is finish up the entire package to be able to present it properly to him versus like, that's just a cool idea.
Crazy.
You want to get the endorsement. That's the thing.
Amazing. Dude, you've come a long way since Beetle Adventure Racing.
This is how we button the interview.
No, but it's just, it really is phenomenal. Like, I've known this guy forever, and we've sort of crossed paths in many different ways. One of the times was in Winnipeg. We were on a panel together.
That was on a panel for how do you bring interactivity to a property and promote it. It was a film.
Yeah, film and games
film
and the crossover. It was a film festival, and
I think I've seen you at Comic-Con as well.
And Comic-Con, and it's just fascinating. And I think we've got a question.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Technology has changed so much since you're entering into.
Oh, it has.
What skill set has served you well to this day?
Okay, question is from Jamie. Thank you. What skill set has served you well to this day with all of the different technology that has changed since you started?
Understanding the basic principles of storytelling. And I don't just mean the hero's journey, though that is a really great template for building a story and having that engagement with characters in the world, but really understanding, there's something that we're all seeking kind of like an emotional resonance. We're all seeking an experience that stays with us versus something that's just disposable and bubblegum. And I think that that's something you can carry to any platform you're working on. It's like, does this resonate with me? Does this somehow hit some emotional triggers or make a little bit of dopamine drip in the brain? And that's kind of like the storyteller's urge, right? Like, I want to engage you. And I think that whatever platform you're working on, if you go through that prism or that lens of engagement, it will serve you well.
Fascinating dude. Warco.
Have you, kind of related to that question, have you played a game recently or even in the past that you've had some sort of spiritual truth by playing it?
Ooh.
That's kind of resonated with you, like on a spiritual level?
We got a question from Warco asking, have you played a game recently that's resonated on a spiritual level, or has some truth that you weren't expecting out of an experience like that?
Recently, well, I have to say, and I'm sure you'll agree, and I'm sure many of your viewers will agree, that when you turn off the lights and you get in the zone on Breath of the Wild, it can feel like you truly have just completely lost yourself in a world.
Yeah.
And there were moments of whimsy and magic and discovery that I'm like, wow, this is really living.
Yeah.
I'm living here.
Yes.
And I think the extra spiritual component of that for me, the icing on top of the cake, was the fact that I was playing with my dad. In Nova Scotia, and he's getting on in years now, and we bonded when I was a young teen over playing like in television games together. And so to come full circle, so we never played Nintendo platforms or anything else together, and to come full circle and to have the Switch experience where we're exploring together, and there were times where I'd let him go and kind of give him little hints because he would get lost in this massive 3D world, and where he'd get excited when I was in a battle and trying to figure out a system and how it would work. That, to me, anything that can create a bond and a shared experience of reality, that's a spiritual experience.
Amazing. Amazing game. Brooke Burgess, where can people find more about your work?
BrookeBurgess.com.
There it is. There it is. You can read all about the work that he's done, all the books and the podcast and all the secret stuff.
What's
that
laughing at me? It's my name.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much, Vic. Absolute pleasure.
Keep up the adventure, my friend.
I'll try.
All right, you guys. I've had time to jump into the Division 2. Here's my review. So the Division 2 is finally here after many, many months of hype and expectation and lots of information that Ubisoft has released about this game. We can actually play it, and we can get it into our hot little hands, and we can figure out whether we're having a good time or not. And I thought about this video. This is kind of like an early review or a first look kind of review, because I've put in about, 15 hours could be 20 hours. The time just completely disappears in this game, but I certainly have not put in the hundreds of hours. I've not reached end game. I haven't done the PvP stuff. And I think what you really care about at this point is whether I'm having a great time or not. And the answer is yes, emphatically, I'm having a fucking awesome time. Blake, you're going to beep that, right? It is such an amazing game. It's a very, very addictive experience. The gun combat is familiar if you played the first division. It's a little bit looser than you would find in a traditional third-person shooter. It's not quite even Anthem or Destiny caliber gunplay and gun combat, but that remove where you see your character and you're sort of customizing that character with different outfits and weapons all the way through also brings this kind of, I don't know, different sensibility about the experience. I feel like I'm playing like this wicked little badass action figure that can come into any encounter and usually deal with it all right, especially if I've got some backup with me. Things get a little bit more hairy if you try to take on some of these missions on your own, which I was doing. I wanted to kind of experiment with a little bit of the solo player experience, and I also definitely wanted to match up with other players and take on some of these missions with other folks, and that makes it way more fun, to be frank, but also a lot easier. It's, because you can end up in a sort of a death state as your other three compadres are running around cleaning up all the bad guys that they have to accomplish the objective, and then you still reap all the rewards. I'm just sort of at level 10 right now. I've started to unlock a lot of the different people that you need. You're recruiting different people that you need within your base camp that allow you access to different elements of the game. So I'm starting to put those pieces together. I beat a bunch of missions. I've unlocked some settlements. I've unlocked a bunch of safe houses. I've played a lot of multiplayer cooperative stuff. I've gone off on side missions. I've had lots of just random encounters out in the streets of Washington, D.C. Yes, it is absolutely surreal, just like I thought it would be, that I'm playing this game so soon after actually visiting Washington, D.C. And I actually went in and grabbed documents out of the National Archives, which I had just visited. I cruised around outside of the Washington Monument and the White House and went down streets that I had walked while I was in Washington, D.C. You go into the Air and Space Museum and you're in the planetarium. And that's the amazing decision that was done with this game as well, because they placed it in a city that's just so rife with history and museums and stuff. They can almost recreate other parts of the world within the world. You've got some subway stuff, you've got some destroyed beauty in the streets, you've got like a Vietnam museum, suddenly your backdrop is a Mars rover because you're in the Air and Space Museum. There's all kinds of amazing details in the rubble and the secret messages and the encounters that you kind of recreate. You just want to get all the collectibles, and you're also bringing to life all of these settlements, and you're seeing the individuals that you're meeting there are sort of like cheering you on. Love you, Division guy, love you.
Welcome back.
The gunplay feels great, maybe not as great as your favorite shooters, I give it that, but it's still pretty damn solid. And you've got all of these mobility elements in there because it's third person, so you can do flips and rolls and butt up against obstructions and shoot over top of them, and there's all kinds of augmentations that you get in this game, and I chose the auto turret thing, which was such a helpful little ally. It almost made a lot of my encounters with the bad guys almost like there were two of us. I would place my turret on top of an obstruction or a barrier, and then I would race around and flank the opponents, and it just felt amazing. It felt like I was funneling them all in and taking them out. But the game that I kept thinking back to as I was playing this was SOCOM. Back in the day on the PlayStation 2, there was a PlayStation 3 SOCOM game as well. I used to love SOCOM, and this kind of feels a little bit like that. You don't have maybe all of the mobility and all of the freedom that they would have within the maps of a SOCOM, but you have quite a bit of stuff. You know what you can climb over and climb up on in this game. There are ropes and things like that you can clamber down, and ladders and things. There's actually a lot of underground area to explore in here, just like in the subways in New York in the First Division. It has the addictive sort of Diablo-esque, loop of you finding new stuff. So you spend a ton of time in the menus, and they're pretty elegantly put together. And yes, there is a store, and yes, they've got the loot box type mechanic thing. I didn't really feel compelled to go into there. I didn't really care. Like, I'm not really one of those players that gets obsessed about being completely unique and original. I just want my character to look cool. So I made my character look like Hugh Jackman in Logan, basically. He's Wolverine. He looks like Wolverine. He's got some aviator shades on there, and I gave him kind of blue-black hair, which looks like right out of the comic books. And I found some guns that I like. I found this kind of single-shot assault rifle that was very powerful, which I stuck with even though it was level 5 and I was level 10. It was like, oh, I'm not giving up this thing. I love this gun. What I can tell you about the Division 2 is that the developers clearly have been tuning and tweaking. They didn't have to build from the ground up. I thought the Division 1 was superb from my vantage point. I didn't stay with it for hundreds and hundreds of hours, and I can see the fatigue that people had there. That, you know, everything wasn't put together. But what I understand about the Division 1 is that the developers stayed with it, and they kept adding it, and it just kept improving and improving. And you can clearly see all of those learnings in the Division 2. 10 hours into Anthem, I felt like I don't really want to keep playing this, but I did to finish it and to review it, the story campaign. With the Division 2, I don't want to play anything else except this game. And in fact, I would say that Division 2 is my favorite gaming experience that I've played so far in 2019. It's got that compulsive, I want to explore every nook and cranny of this beautiful Washington, D.C. that they've crafted for us. I do wish, I said this to the developers a little bit too, is that I do wish that with all of these intricate systems that are in this game, that there was maybe another layer, another sort of meta layer of, I don't know, resource management, massive made world in conflict, which is one of the coolest, that's actually a great buried treasure, one of the coolest big real-time strategy games back in the day. It was so ambitious, and I just feel like this game is ripe for another layer of management, not just watching the NPCs build up everything, and maybe you could do a little bit more placement of stuff, almost like State of Decay a little bit. There is that opportunity because this engine is so wonderful and robust and so detailed. There almost is this open door opportunity for more mechanics to be applied. I don't know if the Division would ever do that. I think this is really a looter shooter, and it's about engagement, and the social element is also much more valuable here than I found in Anthem. And I hate to keep harping on Anthem because good work is in that game, but yeah, I clearly saw that because I was boots on the ground and walking through the rubble in all this amazing detail in the Division 2, I was exposed to it and appreciating it a lot more than in Anthem, where you're flying over everything and you're just like whipping through the thing and you get to there and you get to there, and you just consume that game so quickly. The Division 2, much more methodical. It takes a little bit of time.
I won't forget it.
This is an incredible game, people. I am fully on board for the Division 2. I am not done with it. I'm going to continue playing it. I will have some follow-up thoughts as I get deeper into this experience. But for now, the only kind of complaint that I could really levy at it is that it's not like a lot of sequels. It's not new. It's not like a fresh surprise. Here it is out of nowhere. This feels like an iteration and a distillation of incredible work that went into the first Division. And god damn, it's beautiful. Oh, amazing game. Loving the Division 2 so far. Right now, for my early review, 9.5 out of 10. The Division 2 is incredible. I can't wait to get back to it. In fact, I have downloaded it to this laptop, and I am actually going on a holiday, so I'm going to be taking the laptop and the Division 2 with me, and I'll be reporting on how the game fares over more time very soon. Speaking of time, we're running out of it. We had such an incredible conversation with Brooke Burgess. Big round of applause for Brooke once again. So we have got to jump right into our Let's Play and Chat segment. We're going to take a look at Yoshi's Crafted World, and to help me do that, we've got Brett coming up to play the game. The segment is Let's Play and Chat. Welcome, Brett. Thank you for coming down. You were the first person here today.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
And you haven't come down to see the show.
I was here last week.
Oh, you were?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
cool. Yeah, so you want to support the show?
Oh,
and,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
be a
thanks.
part of it.
Huge, long-time follower of EP and watching you since I was like 10 or so.
Awesome,
so
man.
It's kind of a
Don't
dream come true sitting next to this guy
old.
here. So.
Okay. No, that's so rad, dude. And are you
Doesn't
from
matter
Vancouver?
No, I'm from a small town in Ontario, a little hockey town, and it's Belleville.
In Belleville, very cool. I've heard
little
good things
small-
about Belleville. I heard
Yeah,
it's
it's
one of the prettiest towns in our country.
I don't know about that. Vancouver's
Okay.
pretty nice.
Vancouver's
It's a hockey
pretty nice.
town, and like just growing up in Canada, like it's
Yeah.
either you like hockey or you're thrown in jail. Like it's against the law to not like hockey in Canada, and if you like video games, it's kind of like you're told, why are you playing a kids game? It's a kids game, and you're sitting there being like, hockey's a kids game too, man.
Just play NHL, and then when
hockey's
they
a
leave
kids
the
game.
room, you put in the game that you want.
Oh, it's always the games that I want. Always that I was.
Kids actually did that.
Yeah, I know. Yes.
What do we got for me? What do we have?
You are playing Yoshi, so
Which one's Yoshi?
Yoshi's the
Could you?
green guy.
I'm kidding. Could you
Yeah.
imagine if I was like that?
Oh yeah, it'd be crazy.
Of course, I know who Yoshi
You'd
is.
be on the wrong show right now.
I know, right?
Okay, so go back that way.
Okay.
You got to play it on this screen, unfortunately, but
Oh, I
it's
see, I see.
projecting
All
in the
right,
room,
I
and
see, I
then
see.
go to the little red dot
Oh,
and jump
okay.
into the world. I haven't played this at all. We're only
All
gonna
right.
play this for a little bit.
So what is it called? Yoshi's
Yoshi's
Crafted
Crafted World.
Crafted
and
World.
they've done some cool things with yarn and Play-Doh with and cardboard. Yeah.
It's got a kind of like a Little Big Planet feel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
looks gorgeous, looks beautiful. And of course the segment is Let's Play and Chat, so if you have a question or a comment, this is our time to interact, and it's great to see you, Bo. Good to see you, Nintendo Boy 17, Joshua Estes, Paul Adamson, Sam I Am 111, Blair Farrell, Blade Blur, Maddle Pirate. I don't know if I've ever seen this person. Maddle Pirate says hire this guy. Is he a friend of yours?
Hire this guy? No, might be. I don't know.
Are you you're looking for work?
Oh, I'm always looking for work.
Yeah,
so
are you?
I'm always- in the gaming industry in Canada, I think it's a really interesting time
Would you
to
work
be in the
like
gaming
Brooke
industry.
does for nothing?
Oh, I would.
Yes, okay.
If it was in the gaming industry in Canada, for sure I would.
All right, you guys, we got a question from Bubble Buster. Has Blake eaten at Blake's Lotta Burger? It's a great fast food restaurant. Question for you, Blake.
Oh, I died.
Oh, it does not like it. Oh, never eaten there. Okay, all right. He has not eaten there. Do you work at Lotta Burger, Blake's Lotta Burger? Question. Yes, question. What are your favorite hockey video games? Sam I Am 111 wants to know.
Oh,
What's your-
my hockey favorite? Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't play. I strongly against hockey.
Hockey
I
in all
don't like
forms.
it. Yeah, I hate hockey in all forms, man. Can't stand it. I've been told. Well,
They
the
kicked
reason,
you out of Belleville.
Well, yeah, exactly. But the reason why I don't like hockey so much is that as being a kid in Canada, not liking hockey and wanting to play video games.
Yeah. Well, you're in the right
you
city.
know? Yeah.
I mean, we got a big hockey
You get made
town
fun
here.
of, and you're like,
Vancouver's
why?
pretty big on hockey, but we also had a basketball team, and people cannot.
Well,
like
how about
hockey
how about the Overwatch team though? How about
And the
that?
Overwatch
yeah,
team?
we just got one of the first e-sported teams in Canada, official e-sported teams for the Overwatch League.
Pretty rad.
Toronto got one as well,
Yep.
and I think that's making major strides for competition in Canada. In my opinion.
Absolutely.
I think Brooke kind of hit it right on the head when he was talking about it being a universal language, but it's also a universal form of competition. It's we talk so much about different forms of competition and what's equal and what's not, but when Yoshi is programmed to only jump a certain amount and only run a certain speed,
Yeah.
you and me are equal on a digital platform, so it doesn't matter guy, girl,
Right.
Disability or not disability. I mean, I've seen people missing
So
arms
so
and
you
legs
are
play
pro
competitively.
gaming in the Olympics. Is what I'm
100%,
hearing.
100%.
Okay. All
Maybe
right.
not the Olympics. Call it the Olympics because that's kind of direct for sports, but there is going to be a level of competition that is going to be digital.
I think we should get to that for sure.
I think if you look at it this way, 500 years from now, 1,000 years from now, 10,000 years from now, we've colonized Mars and Venus, and we've colonized Neptune, and
Yeah.
whatever we've colonized.
Yes.
Sports isn't going to be the same on each planet.
No.
Mars isn't going to have football. It's not going to have hockey. So what's our Olympics going to look like at that point?
We're all
in
going to
time?
be robots, brother.
You're right, but competition is going to be on the digital platform.
Yeah, for sure. We got a question from Jamie in the crowd. I wish we had a Donahue mic. We got to have one of those things. Yeah. All right. Okay. What's your question? I'm actually away.
Good question.
So we'll be doing some rundowns from an exotic location to be announced in the next couple of days. But we don't have EP Live next week. We are back the week of March 25th, and I don't know who's coming yet, but we'll announce soon on various social media networks that are working. But good question. So stay tuned. Good people will come through. Jordan Cunningham, question. Hey, Vic. Would it be awesome if NHL hockey came to the Switch? Yes, I think it would.
I think it would.
But
I think we could have.
only good for your friends, not for you.
I mean, okay, you got to understand
you-
if there's a video game or like an actual physical activity, clearly I'm going to take the video game.
Totally.
For sure. Getting eaten by this piranha plant.
Question from Ty Fish. You should get Tommy on for a Yoshi review. I should get Tommy. But Tommy, as we all know,
Yeah,
he runs in television now, right?
Oh, does he?
Yeah, he's got a new console coming out. He'll show up in an Intellivision t-shirt. He's all pro in television. I tried to get him to review Spider-Man on the PlayStation 4, and he backed away because he can't really talk about other.
Thinking about you two back together,
Yeah,
man.
well, I
just
want to
makes me
do
like,
it, but he won't.
you
And,
should-
and
do
we were
it.
talking about
Do it,
reviewing
Tommy.
stuff, and then he's the president of Intellivision, so he's got like.
Well, you can
and
invite
so
him
now the
on
only thing I can
for-
review is Intellivision games. And he's going to give every one of them 10. So it's a weird thing. I guess I could review movies with him
Yeah.
or comic books or something like that. Question from Elliot Stephen Paul.
Just do a podcast and talk.
Yeah, totally. Have you ever been to Anime Revolution? Do you go to any other conventions aside from Fan Expo? Elliot, I'm going to, I think it's the Anime Expo or the Anime Revolution in Toronto in May. I think I'm going to be there. I'm working it out with the folks, but I'll have an announcement about that very soon. And I'm also going to be at a free comic book day event in Ontario through a friend, and I'll tell you guys more about that as soon as I seal the deal. But I'm definitely looking forward to getting out for both of those. Question: when is your Persona 5, Shadows of Valentia, and Metal Gear Survive review coming from you? That's from Happy Console Gamer. I don't know. I think it's going to be when we can get together and review it together, Johnny. All right, we'll do all three of those together, okay? Blade Blur question, what about U.S. conventions? I would like to do that as well, but I don't have time to chase every kind of opportunity and lead. That's my dilemma right now. But I would love to do that. Maybe we'll be at PAX this year. It worked out that I was at Fan Expo last year and they were on the same weekend. I love going down to PAX. Stay tuned. Okay, let's see
Can I
what
ask
we
a
got
question?
here. Yeah, go for it.
How important do you think cross-compatibility is for the next future of gaming?
I think it's really important. I think,
Why is
you
that?
know, I was thinking back to the moment when Reggie and Phil and what's the Sony guy's name? And Sean Layden were all on stage at the Game Awards. That is an emblematic kind of moment. That is a moment that Jeff worked his ass off to create, and it's also symbolic of the future of video games.
Yeah.
These stupid clubhouses that we have put up there, all through the marketing hype of Sega does what Nintendo don't, and all of these ridiculous console wars that we've had, even the PC and Mac fight, all of these things, the Android and iOS fight, all of it is just they're artificial barriers to content, and it's made people miss out on other opportunities. And I think what Netflix kind of showed is you can scrub all of the lines off of where the content comes from and be a purveyor for all of it.
For everyone.
You know, and even network television, you know, and people working in television today that might be watching this aren't going to like to hear this, but networks just don't make any sense anymore. You know?
The reason why they're writing for TV, they're writing for a weird pattern of commercial breaks and advertisement.
Yes.
Where Netflix, they have that idea of let's give you 10 episodes, we're going to write the story, give you the arcs, give you the character, give you the everything that can be in 10 episodes, and we'll cut it up whatever way we want.
Yeah.
We're not going to cut it up around every 15 minutes to get some advertisements in your face.
Just the idea of making you have to join a clubhouse before you can see this stuff over and over again, you know. It's just a silly way to kind of exist.
Just old. It's an old way of...
Yeah, you know, and we don't know where shows come from anymore, especially with the world of Netflix. You used to, when I was growing up, you'd decide what channel you're going to watch, and you were on that channel for a while.
I think
now that doesn't matter, and that's why AMC puts their name in the shows that they make. You know?
I think the beauty of Netflix is just being able to open up different avenues of cultural shows, just like Dark from, I think, Germany.
Yeah.
Just never be able to see that on television.
Yes.
One of the greatest things I've witnessed on Netflix, and
Totally.
it came from something I wouldn't have been able to see otherwise.
Yeah, and you know,
you don't see that kind of stuff on TV.
And Steam, I think, operates in much the same manner. I don't think people go to Steam and go, okay, well, I only want to look at Capcom stuff, or I only want to look at Konami stuff. Certainly, super fans of those brands do, and they exist out there.
Always have fans.
But you can go and you can see an indie game next to a massive AAA title, and I think that's the precursor to the way that we should be thinking about things. So cross-platform play is huge, and the companies kind of getting along for the betterment of the medium is the only way to go. And I think that we're moving towards that. And if Microsoft says that Xbox Live is going to be on the Switch, that's a huge change. That is not an admission of defeat or surrender or having to kind of reposition because Sony has outsold the Xbox One. That is Xbox being progressive and saying, having these artificial blockades from people being able to access this content is not going to serve the consumer of the future. And I think Sony will probably eventually do that, and Nintendo will be the last bastion. They'll be the ones that hold out the longest. HoloLens Zelda, yeah, right? VR Mario Kart. You know, there's so many things that we don't get to experience because of these stupid
limitations
Yeah, it's tribal. Yeah. Yeah, well, anyways, big question, good question. We just got a chance to take a quick little look at it, but we actually do have to kind of wrap up because we have to close down the cafe. But remember, when we make EP Live, you can come and join us right here in the space of the VFS Cafe in Vancouver. That's at 390 West Hastings, and we'd love to see you here live and in person. It's pretty fun, right?
Convenient location.
And you get a good
Stop
show.
on by.
And you get to hear from cool people like Brooke Burgess.
That's true.
Pretty damn cool. We're going to be back on March 25th with a new EP Live. In the meantime, we'll have a bunch of new rundowns for you, and I'll be doing some reviews literally on the run. So stay tuned for all of those. Thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure you get caught up on all the fun things that we've been making. And if you dig it, hit subscribe and that little bell and all the things. We'll see you very soon. Play forever.